There's this huge misconception that black box testing is just about, I don't know, banging on a keyboard until something breaks.
Right.
But the reality is, when you break it and who you tell it all depends on the rules of the game you're playing.
It really does. The job title might say tester, but
Mhm.
your actual day-to-day reality,
Mm-hmm.
that is dictated by the software development lifecycle, the SDLC.
And today, we're unpacking that very dynamic using testing paradigms, the black box guide to Waterfall and Agile.
Which is great because it's one of our own learning materials here at Skill Wanderer.
Exactly.
As a nonprofit edtech, our whole goal at skill-wanderer.com is making this stuff accessible. And, the guide makes this great point right away. The model you work in shifts your entire identity. You're either a gatekeeper or you're a collaborator.
Okay, so let's start with that gatekeeper role. That's the waterfall model.
The classic.
It's the classic approach, and honestly, it feels a bit like building a house. You pour the foundation, then you frame the walls, then you put on the roof. You can't just jump ahead.
That's a perfect way to put it. It's completely linear. Requirements, then design, then coding, then testing. In that exact order. And because each phase has to be 100% done and signed off,
The tester just waits.
a lot of waiting. Weeks, sometimes months.
And then the floodgates open.
And that's where the gatekeeper pressure really hits. When you finally get that software, your one source of truth is the requirements document. That's it.
Just a static piece of paper.
Exactly. So if the software works beautifully, but it does something slightly different than what it says on page 45 of that document,
It's a bug.
technically it's a bug.
It sounds so rigid, but I can see where you'd need that. I mean, if you're testing, say, a core banking system moving millions of dollars around.
You don't want creativity. You want a paper trail. Regulation demands that kind of rigidity. But the downside, and the guide really highlights this, is the dreaded crunch time.
The math never works out for the tester here. If development is 2 weeks late, the release date, it doesn't move.
It never moves. So the time has to come from somewhere, and it's almost always pulled from the testing phase.
Yeah.
You end up with half the time to do the exact same amount of work. It's incredibly high stress.
So let's flip to the alternative then, Agile. If Waterfall is building the whole house at once, Agile is more like, what, building a campsite, then a cabin, then maybe the house?
The guide uses the skateboard to car analogy, which I love. But yes, it's iterative. You work in these short cycles called sprints, usually 2 weeks.
So you aren't waiting 3 months for code.
Not at all. You're basically sitting next to the developer. You might be testing a login button on Tuesday that was just coded on Monday.
Which has to completely change the paperwork. You're not dealing with a 200-page Bible anymore.
No, not at all. You rely on user stories, these short, simple descriptions of what a user wants, and something called a definition of done.
Just a checklist, basically.
Did a checklist. Did we build the skateboard? Does it roll? Check. Good. Ship it.
And that makes total sense for, like, a social media app. You have to beat your competitors to market. You can't wait 6 months.
Speed is everything there, but Agile brings its own special kind of pain, the regression burden.
Ah, yes. Because you're constantly adding new features, you have to constantly retest all the old features to make sure you didn't break them.
So in Waterfall, you run that big marathon once at the very end. In Agile, you're running a new sprint every 2 weeks, forever.
That's the trade-off. And it requires a completely different mindset. The guide draws this fantastic line between verification and validation.
This is my favorite part of the text.
Mine too. Waterfall is verification. It's asking, are we building the product right, according to this spec sheet?
Whereas Agile is validation. It's asking, are we building the right product for the user? In Waterfall, you write up a formal 50-step test case. In Agile.
You might just turn to the developer and ask, hey, does this flow make sense to you?
Exactly. The technique is the same. You're still checking boundaries, looking for errors, but the delivery is totally different.
Okay, but we have to talk about the critical thinking note in the guide. Because the real world is almost never that clean. They use this term, Water-Scrum-Fall.
It's the industry's open secret, really. So many companies say they're Agile, they do the daily stand-up meetings, they use the lingo.
But management still demands a fixed scope and a fixed deadline that's 3 months away.
So you get the worst of both worlds.
The lack of documentation from Agile, but the ironclad, high-pressure deadline of Waterfall.
It happens all the time. And as a tester, if you don't spot that you're in a Water-Scrum-Fall environment, you are going to drown. You have to adapt to the reality, not the label they use.
It just comes down to the goal then. Waterfall is for predictability and control.
And Agile is for adaptability and speed. Neither is better. You don't want a heart pacemaker built with move fast and break things logic. And you don't want a photo-sharing app that took 3 years to plan.
Context is everything. So before we wrap, here's something to leave you with.
Let's say you started a new job tomorrow. The team tells you they're agile, but then on your first day, they hand you a 100-page requirements document. Would you recognize that trap? And more importantly, how would you change your strategy to survive it?
Something to think about. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the Skill Wanderer library. We'll see you next time.